Patch 8.7.0 is on the PTB. Now the gameplay in the background is going to be chocky because I'm not playing Mouse 1 killers into this crap. I just refuse. The entire patch is a Swift's wet dream because damn near every single change is exceptionally abusable in a Swift. Meanwhile, it's kind of meh in solo queue, so let's get into it. We have 3 new perks for the survivors. We've got one that gives everybody sprint burst when you take a protection hit, so body blocking, which is uncounterable in a lot of situations, has been buffed through the roof. Pretty obvious as to why this will buff a Swift and why Mouse 1 kills with no mobility will suffer more from this than other killers. Next, we have the old object of obsession. When you become exhausted, you see the killer for 2 seconds. Combine this with sprint burst and you get on-demand or a read out of chase. Don't forget Vigil just got buffed recently, and stacks, which makes this combo even more oppressive in a Swift. For solo queue, this perk is going to be a massive meme, basically borderline useless, but in a Swift, not so much. Lastly, we have a perk that yet again buffs survivors for being hooked. For each hook state someone has, they gain a stackable 50% healing speed increase if you have the perk for the rest of the match. So as you hook people, they get reset and healed off the ground faster if other people are running the perk. Again, in solo queue this perk is going to be situational at best, while in a Swift they can guarantee that they will always be healing the most vulnerable target as fast as possible. This essentially kills hit and run as a playstyle even more against a Swift, since they get reset so quickly at any stage in the match. Remember, it's not just off the hook they get the speed buff, it's for the entire match. So we've got one meta-defining perk, one perk that encourages tunneling, that's met in solo queue and exceptionally strong in comms, and one that's useless in solo and again extremely abusable in comms. Now you might be starting to see why I say this is a Swiss wet dream of a patch. Next up on the docket is the Haste and Hinder changes, which I will be going into a lot of detail with because these changes are really bad. For those who don't know, Hinder effects won't stack with other Hinder effects and Haste effects won't stack with other Haste effects. Now, because of this, the things that relied on haste stacking were adjusted. In fact, here's exactly how behavior worded it. Introduced small buffs to perks which previously relied on stacking. So bear in mind they are changing perks that they perceive as being primarily used in haste stack builds and hinder stack builds. Very important to remember this. Now some of you might be thinking, wow, they must have changed a lot of add-ons and perks then because a large amount of them relied on stacking to be useful. Surely things like Chase Hag, BFFs on Legion, and Drop Knife Sheath on Ghostface got changed, right? Right? No. 4 survivor perks were changed and 2 killer perks. 2! That's it. Just 2 perks in the entire killer roster got changed. So surely the perks that got changed must be pivotal perks to the haste playstyle, like play with your food.
No.
We'll start with the survivor perk. The perks that were changed were Dark Theory, Breakout, Champion of Light, and No One Left Behind.
What?
We'll get into Dark Theory after I've covered both the Survivor and the Killer perks because that one is going to be intense, and instead we're going to jump straight into Breakout. You know Breakout, the perk that increases wiggle progress if you run near the killer while they're carrying a survivor, and it gives you 7% haste to keep up with the killer while doing that. As we all know, it's a perk that's renowned in the DBD community for being primarily used for stacking with other haste perks.
So that was a fucking lie.
I would like to note that this perk is almost primarily used by Swifts to make hooking people borderline impossible, and very rarely, if ever, is it used in solo queue. Not because it's not a strong perk, it is a strong perk, but just because you waste too much time hanging around waiting for someone to go down in solo queue, whereas in a Swift you can communicate you're going to go down very soon, and therefore they can have a teammate ready with the breakout. It's the same reason things like flashlight saves and pallet saves are stronger in Swifts. They buff the haste from 7% to 10%. So Swift mainly got buffed with this one. G behavior, I really do wonder why slugging is becoming a problem. Speaking of Breakout, in the background footage you'll notice I slug in this match because as I went for the hook I was being swarmed by survivors in a patch where they just buffed the perk that increases the wiggle process for doing just that. Now a certain somebody then decided to shit talk me on stream for doing this, saying that I'm playing like an arsehole and actively joking about not caring about hiding my name while shit talking me. This is the problem with buffing perks like Breakout. I as the killer have to assume that it's in play, and what's the counterplay for it? That's correct, unfun gameplay, and I don't care that we're on the PTB. Killers shouldn't be guilt-tripped into being bullied by playing nice. You got shit on, deal with it. Next up on the perk change is we have Champion of Light. Now this one was stacked with Fixated to give you a sprint speed while flashlighting. They've changed Fixated so that it no longer stacks with Champion of Light, so they buffed the haste of Champion of Light up to 70%, from 50%. So it's now weaker than it is on live when comboed with fixated, but it's stronger on live than it is on its own. If you want the new movement speed values, with 100% movement speed being sprint speed, on live the fixated plus champion combo let you move at just over 100% movement speed, and on the PTB with just champion you move at 96% movement speed. The last perk we have to talk about at the moment is No One Left Behind, another classic perk that everybody used to use when doing haste stacking builds.
Fucking lie.
It's been buffed to 10%. I have literally never seen a single person in my 2700 hours running this, and I can confidently say I doubt I will see anybody running it anytime soon. I don't know why this was a perk that came to their mind when buffing haste perks that had synergy, but hey, here it is. To be fair to Behavior, haste stacking builds on Survivor aren't really necessary because most of the perks that have haste are fine on their own, like Power of 2. I do think they should have changed Blood Pack though. That perk is, well, I just don't know why it exists, to be honest. Even in a duo, the obsession criteria makes it inconsistent at best, and Power of 2 is just better in almost every single way, except the raw haste bonus. But when you can't get that raw haste bonus in 90% of the matches, who gives a toss? I think the only perk here that was actually worth changing was Champion of Light. All the other ones are stupid at best and broken at worst. Again, we'll get onto Boon Dark Theory in a little bit. Now we're on to the killer perk. 2 perks got changed to do with haste, and that's it from the killers. Remember gamers, they said they wanted to buff perks that were used in synergistic haste stacking builds, so these perks must have been used in haste builds. The perks that were changed were Furtive Chase and Unbound.
Oh my god! Oh jeez, oh my god!
Furtive Chase and Unbound? What? What? You're telling me, Behavior, you looked at every single perk and add-on on the killer roster, all the different combos people came up with to make fun and interesting haste builds, and the 2 perks that you decided out of the entirety of Dead by Daylight for the killer side that needed a buff for this particular playstyle were Unbound and Furtive Chase. Where the fuck are you getting your information from? Now, I'm not saying that these perks didn't need buff, but they're not perks used in haste stacking builds. The problem with Furtive Chase is that it lasts too little time, so that only killers who can make consistent value out of the effects are high mobility killers. Increasing the haste doesn't really help with that, so now it's even stronger for high mobility killers while still being shit for everyone else. The Unbound change is actually a really good one, and it's now worth running. In fact, you'll see me using the perk in the background footage, and I got a fair amount of value out of it. But Unbound wasn't being stacked with other haste perks, it was being stacked with Vault Speed perks, which you can still do. So while I do love the buff for this perk, because anyone who knows me knows I'm all for buffing chase perks, so we can try to move away from 3 to 4 slowdown perks per match, it's not a perk that would be affected by this haste change. So it doesn't really make sense to change it in the context of the haste changes like they have done. So basically, we got 1 good killer perk change and 1 good survivor perk change.
Perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
No, Behavior, it is not perfectly balanced as all things should be, because the overall changes suck peen. Now let's get into the change to Pentimento. So that's dead. Now I've done 2 scripts for this video, and I fully recorded the first script last night, but I redid a lot of it this morning, which is what you've heard so far. I'll let past me talk for the Penti changes, you'll notice a tonal shift, and that's why. So take it away, 2 AM me. They killed the perk, and subsequently all hex build. I'll leave the changes on screen, because I'm going to explain why this is so stupid. Penti was used as a fallback in a hex build, so when a survivor inevitably spawns on top of your totem and cleansed it 5 seconds into the march, you had something to use afterwards that was worthwhile. In this case, a 30% repair speed reduction when you relit a totem. This meant, even if you instantly lost your totems, you still had something to use. That's now gone, because Behavior's complete disconnect from how DBD is actually played is on full display. They want it so that you're encouraged to try and light multiple totems. Behavior. The reason no one did this is because it was borderline impossible once you got out of bottom of the barrel MMR. In fact, it happens so little, it's literally considered a challenge from creators. Ots calls it, and I quote, the dumbest challenges in DBD. The top content creator for this game considers lighting all 5 penties a dumb challenge, and you've just decided to rework the perk so the only way to get value out of it is by lighting multiple totems. So hex builds, which were already considered a meme in high MMR, and you barely saw, are now completely dead. If that wasn't enough, you also get wall hack on the totems when they're lit, making the already dumbest challenge in DBD even dumber. You know, we'll ignore the fact that whenever a hex is cleansed, there's a map-wide noise notification that can be heard, and a map-wide wall hack showing exactly where that hex was cleansed that also happens. Apparently that wasn't enough information for solo queue. They also need a 24/7 permanent wall hack on the totem as well. And before someone says, well, what about the dull totems, JC? If you have a teammate walking around cleansing every dull totem on the map, you have a bigger problem on your hands than the killer running Pentimento. So now Penti is dead, and subsequently most hex builds, throwing more variety out the window. So let's finally get onto the Dark Theory changes, because this one is going to be a long one. Dark Theory, which grants 2% haste within 24 meter of a boon, has been buffed to 3% haste. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I distinctly remember a time where for about 8 months, there was another perk that granted 3% haste that completely dominated the meta and made playing any of the non-mobility killers fucking atrocious. Speed buffs like this completely throw off all muscle memory and distance timing, which is why Made for this had to be nerfed in the first place, and they've just reintroduced it onto a boon. Now, before you go in the comments, I'm going to say this goes both ways. I don't like random haste and hinder on killers either because it's very delicate, and here's an example. I main Sadako, who is from the same chapter as Dark Theory. Now, Sadako has an add-on called Telephone. When you manifest, which is the change state thing that she can do, you will hinder any survivor by 3% for 3 seconds within a certain radius of you. Now, because I make a lot of Sadako stuff, I'm constantly pitched of ways to buff this add-on because right now it's the worst hinder add-on in the game, and I always say no to most of the changes because the activation effect is very easy to do. If this add-on was buffed to even just 10 seconds, which would be more than enough hinder for an entire loop, it would become meta overnight because it would guarantee free hits on any unsafe and even safe loops in the game, and I don't like that. That's how strong 3% is, and it's why I've never wanted this particular add-on to be buffed to those levels. Dark Theory is exactly the same issue here, except it will prevent a hit for free instead of giving one for free. The amount of people that I see trying to claim that this is nothing is unbelievable. 3% haste gives you easily another loop around tiles with very little effort, and 24 meter range is more than enough to cover multiple tiles. It also lingers, so even if the boon only covers half of a tile, it will linger enough for you to make the full loop at the full 3% haste, and you'll still be able to use it even in the tiles it's not fully in. There's the argument that I've seen a bunch already, and it was also used during the Circle of Healing meta. Just kick the boon. Oh, thank you, mate. I never thought of that counterplay. Remember, guys, when you're chasing someone on the top floor of Gideon and Dark Theory is lit below you, just leave the chase, waddle downstairs for 20 seconds through the maze of closed doors until you find the boon and snuff it, then waddle all the way back upstairs to where surely that survivor will be waiting for you just to hear the boon get relit 10 seconds later. The counterplay's that easy, guys. Wasting a minimum of 5 seconds to go snuff a boon out is enough for the survivor to waste 20 plus seconds in chase by just shift W into the next tile. Gideon during the MFT meta was absolutely atrocious because you can't mind game 90% of the pallets, you have to force them out. Getting an extra loop around every Gideon tile is 5 to 10 seconds every single time, and if the boon is on another story tier, you're going to be going on a 20-second romp through Gideon, which means you've already lost the chase. I've also seen the counterplay of, oh, you need to find the totem and that wastes time. Oh damn, you're right, there's definitely no item in the game that gives you wall hack on any totem in the match that you've walked within 2 miles of. Oh wait, now, this was a perk that was used with haste stacking, I will 100% admit that, but a permanent 3% haste in a 24 meter radius on multi-story maps is a big middle finger to any Mouse 1 killers, and again, boons are exceptionally oppressive in a Swift, so it's yet another perk to buff Swift. Do you know who doesn't care about 3% haste or even upwards of 5% haste? Blight, Billy, and Nurse. You know, the super strong killers. It's a perk change that doesn't affect the killers that are already oppressive, while making the already weaker ones like Sadako, Myers, Legion, and Ghostface, who rely on really good Mouse 1 mind games with strict distances, even weaker. The exact same problem Made for this brought out. There are some other minor changes in the patches, but those are the big ones. Basically, Swift got giga buffed, Solo barely got touched, Hex builds are dead, and Haste builds on Killer are dead, and the gap between the weaker and the stronger killers just got exponentially larger. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one.